My fiancé left me at the altar and ran away with my younger sister. But when he tried to come back months later, I destroyed him with one call he'll never forget. I'm 26 years old. I work in digital marketing, and there are still days when I wake up and I can't believe that everything that happened 2 years ago actually happened. I mean, how do you explain that your future husband leaves you standing at the altar and runs off with your younger sister? It sounds like a bad soap opera plot, but I swear it's my real life. And I need to tell this story because, honestly, keeping it to myself only hurts me more. I met Ryan when we were 16. We were one of those high school couples that everyone thought were going to end up together. You know? Like, we were inseparable from day one. He played soccer, I was in debate club, and somehow we ended up sitting next to each other in history class, and that was it. It was instant. We spent all of high school together, went to the same community college, and when we turned 22, he proposed to me at the same restaurant where we had our first date. It was perfect. Or so I thought. We decided to wait until we were 24 to get married because we wanted to be more financially stable, have better jobs, do things right. My sister Vanessa is 2 years younger than me, and we were always close. I guess. I mean, we had our fights like any pair of sisters, but I never thought she was capable of something like this. When Ryan and I got engaged, she was like 20 years old and was in college, studying graphic design or something like that. At first, everything was normal. She'd come visit us. The three of us would go out sometimes. And I thought it was nice that they got along because, well, he was going to be my husband and she was my sister, right? Looking back, I should have seen the signs, but I was so wrapped up in my bubble of happiness that I didn't see anything. About 6 months before the wedding, Vanessa started coming to our apartment more often. She said she needed to escape the stress of college, that our place was quieter than her dorm. Ryan and I had been living together for like a year. My parents weren't too happy about that, but whatever. And at first I was fine with Vanessa coming over. Sometimes she'd arrive and Ryan would be alone because I had to stay late at work, and they'd watch movies or order food. I'd get home and find them laughing on the couch, and I'd think, how nice that they get along. Literally. How stupid I was. There was a moment. I think it was like 3 months before the wedding, when I started to feel something weird. It wasn't anything specific, more like a feeling in my stomach. Ryan started being more distracted, checking his phone all the time, and when I'd ask him what was wrong, he'd tell me it was work or that he was stressed about the wedding. Vanessa was also acting different, like more nervous when I was around, and sometimes I'd catch them exchanging looks that I didn't understand. But I was so busy planning the wedding, picking out flowers and trying on dresses, that I basically convinced myself that it was all in my head. My friends told me it was normal to be paranoid before getting married, that all grooms get weird with wedding stress, and I believed them because I wanted to believe them. The week before the wedding was total chaos. We had to coordinate vendors, confirm the guest list, we had like 150 people, and make sure everything was perfect. I barely slept that week. Ryan seemed distant, but again, I thought it was stress. The night before the wedding, we had the rehearsal and dinner, and everything seemed normal. Well, kind of normal. Ryan was quiet, but we toasted and everyone was excited. Vanessa was there, being a bridesmaid along with my 2 best friends from college. I remember she hugged me that night and told me I looked beautiful, that I was going to be a perfect bride. Every time I think about that, I want to throw up. On the wedding day, I woke up at 6 inches the morning. My friends and I had an appointment at the salon at 7 for makeup and hair. I was nervous, obviously, but it was good. Nerves, Like, I'm finally going to marry the love of my life. We're going to start our life together. All that stuff. I took like 1,000 pictures at the salon. We laughed, drank champagne at 9 inches the morning. But hey, it's your wedding day. And I was on cloud 9. My mom was crying with happiness. My dad wouldn't stop saying his little girl was getting married, and everything was perfect. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 inches the afternoon. We arrived at the venue around 12:30 so I could put on my dress and we could take pictures before the ceremony. The place was beautiful. A garden with a white gazebo. Exactly what I had always dreamed of. My friends helped me put on the dress, which had cost me like $2,000, which for me was a lot of money. And I felt like a princess. Literally. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, this is the best day of my life. At 1:30, my wedding planner came to my prep room with a face I'll never forget. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She told me she needed to talk to me in private, and I thought maybe there was a problem with the food or something. We went out to the hallway, and she basically couldn't look me in the eye. She said, "Lauren, Ryan isn't here." And I laughed because I thought it was a joke. Like, obviously he's here, the wedding is in half an hour. But she kept that face. And then she showed me her phone. Ryan's best man, his best friend since childhood, had sent her a message. "He's not coming." I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm so sorry. I swear the world stopped in that moment. I stood there in that ridiculously expensive dress, with perfect makeup and perfect hair, and all I could think was, this can't be happening. I tried to call Ryan, but I was blocked. I tried to text him, blocked too. Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, everything. It was like I had ceased to exist for him overnight. My parents came into the room and my mom started screaming, demanding to know where Ryan was. My dad was trying to call him, but nothing. Guests were starting to arrive, music was playing, and I was in this room feeling like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. One of my friends suggested that maybe he'd had an accident, that maybe he was in the hospital, and for a second I wanted to believe it, because at least that would make sense. Then my cousin Jordan, who's always been more like a sister to me, came running into the room. She had her phone in her hand and looked like she was about to cry. She told me, "You need to see this." She showed me Instagram, and there it was. A photo that someone had posted that morning. It was Ryan, with Vanessa, in a car. The caption said something like, "Looks like there's a runaway romance today," with a heart emoji and everything. The photo had been taken around 8 inches the morning at the gas station near the venue. I couldn't process what I was seeing. Vanessa was supposed to be there. She was my bridesmaid. But she never showed up at the salon. That morning, we had assumed she was running late or had some problem, but nobody thought she had run off with my future husband. I started shaking, and the whole room started spinning. Someone sat me down in a chair before I fell. My mom was screaming. My dad was trying to call Vanessa. And I could only sit there, in complete shock. We had to go out and tell the 150 guests that the wedding was canceled. My dad was the one who did it, because I physically couldn't speak. Some people were crying, others were angry, and I just wanted to disappear. I took off the dress as fast as I could, put on jeans and a hoodie, and went to my apartment. Well, the apartment I shared with Ryan, which was now technically just mine because his name wasn't on the lease. Jordan stayed with me that night because she didn't want me to be alone. The next few days were like living in a nightmare. Ryan finally unblocked me like 3 days later and sent me a message that said something like, "I'm so sorry. I know there's no excuse for this, but I fell in love with Vanessa, and I couldn't keep lying to you." Can you believe it? He didn't even have the courage to tell me in person, or before ruining my entire life in front of 150 people. He just left me there, like trash, and ran off with my sister. My parents were devastated, obviously, but their reaction surprised me in the worst possible way. Instead of being furious with Vanessa and Ryan, they started with the whole thing about how love is complicated, that these things happen, that we needed to forgive and move on as a family. My mom literally told me, "Well, at least you found out before you got married that he wasn't for you." Really? That was all she had to say? He didn't leave me before we got married. He left me at the wedding, in front of all our family and friends. I spent like a month not leaving the apartment, except to go to work. I lost like 15 pounds because I couldn't eat. I barely slept, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan and Vanessa together. The humiliation was the worst part, you know? He hadn't just left me, but he'd done it in the most public and humiliating way possible. Everyone in my life knew. My coworkers knew. My neighbors knew. People I barely knew looked at me with pity, and I hated that more than anything else. Jordan convinced me to go to therapy like 6 weeks after the disaster. At first, I didn't want to. I thought that talking about my feelings with a stranger wasn't going to change anything, but the truth is, it helped me. My therapist made me see that I wasn't to blame for any of this, that Ryan and Vanessa had made horrible decisions that only spoke to their character, not mine. She also made me work on letting go of the idea of the life I had planned with Ryan, and that was really hard because I had spent 8 years building that life in my head. I started doing things I had always wanted to do but never did, because Ryan wasn't interested. I signed up for pottery, classes, started running in the mornings, adopted a cat. Ryan was allergic, and little by little I started to feel like a person again. I wasn't the same person I was before, obviously, but I was finding a new version of myself that, surprisingly, I liked. About 5 months after the wedding that never happened, Ryan called me. He had gotten my new number from who knows where. I answered without thinking, and his voice on the other end of the phone made me feel like I'd been kicked in the stomach. He started with, "Lauren, I need to talk to you." And I almost hung up right there, but something made me stay on the line. He told me he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, that being with Vanessa wasn't what he thought it would be, that she was too immature and dramatic. His words, not mine, and that he'd realized I was the love of his life. He apologized like 1,000 times and asked me if we could try again, start from scratch, forget everything that had happened. I stayed quiet, for a moment, processing what I had just heard, and then something inside me just broke free. I told him, "Do you really think that after what you did to me, after humiliating me in front of all my family and friends, after running off with my sister and destroying my life, you can call me and ask me to forget everything?" I told him I wasn't his plan B, that I wasn't the option he could come back to when his stupidity with Vanessa didn't work out. I told him I hoped he was very happy with the decisions he'd made because he was going to have to live with them forever and to never contact me again. And I hung up, and I blocked him again. And I cried for like 2 hours, but they were different tears this time. They weren't tears of pain, but of liberation. My mom called me like 2 weeks after that. Vanessa had apparently told her that Ryan had left her and that she was devastated. My mom wanted to organize a family dinner so we could talk things through and support Vanessa during this difficult time. Literally. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her if she was joking, if she really expected me to go comfort the sister who had run off with my fiancé on my wedding day. My mom started with the same old speech about family, about forgiveness, about how Vanessa was young and had made a mistake. I told her I wasn't going, that I had no interest in seeing Vanessa or hearing her excuses. My mom got upset and told me I was being selfish, that family is forever and I needed to get over my resentment. Get over my resentment. As if what they'd done to me was something small that I could forget with time. I hung up that call feeling worse than I had in months. A few days later, my parents sent me a joint message. They basically told me that if I wasn't willing to forgive Vanessa and move on, that I wasn't welcome at family gatherings. That they loved both their daughters equally and weren't going to choose sides, but that my attitude was making everyone feel uncomfortable. They gave me an ultimatum: forgive Vanessa and pretend nothing had happened, or stay out of the family. I spent a week thinking about that. I talked to my therapist, to Jordan, to my closest friends. Part of me wanted to give in just to have my family back, but the bigger part of me knew that doing so would be betraying myself. So I sat down and wrote a letter. I explained to my parents that what Vanessa and Ryan did to me wasn't a simple mistake I could forgive and forget. I told them that the fact that they expected me to put my pain aside to make Vanessa happy showed me exactly where their priorities were. I told them I loved them, but that I needed to protect my mental peace and emotional health, and that meant keeping distance from people who had hurt me so deeply without showing any real remorse. I made it clear that the door was open if they ever wanted to have a real conversation about what had happened, but that I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay, just to keep a false peace. I told them I hoped that someday they would understand why I made this decision, and that if they didn't, I would have to accept it. I sent the letter by certified mail to make sure they received it, and then I basically cut contact. It's been almost 2 years since the wedding. Ryan married Vanessa like 6 months ago, according to what I found out through social media. Yeah, I still stalk them from time to time. I'm not perfect. My parents didn't invite me to the wedding, obviously. But honestly, it wouldn't have hurt more than the whole situation already hurt. Jordan says they look miserable in the photos, but I don't know if that's true or if she's just saying it to make me feel better. My life now is completely different from what I had planned. I lived in that apartment for a while longer until the lease ended, and then I moved to a different neighborhood, closer to work. I got a promotion last year, and now I lead my own team. I adopted another cat, because one wasn't enough, and both of them keep me company at night. I go out with my friends, go to pottery classes every Thursday, and I'm learning to play guitar. I've even gone on some dates, though nothing serious yet, because honestly, I still have trust issues I'm working on in therapy. Do I miss my family? Yes, sometimes. But I've also realized that the family I choose, the people who decide to be in my life because they want to, not because they have to, are just as important, if not more. Jordan is still my rock. My friends have supported me in ways I never imagined, and I've met new people who have shown me what real love and loyalty are. Am I still angry? Some days, yes. There are moments when I think about everything I lost, not just Ryan, but my sister and my parents, and I get angry. But most days I'm at peace. I've learned that some betrayals are so big that forgiveness isn't possible, and that's okay. I don't have to forgive people who never showed real remorse for destroying my life. I don't have to maintain relationships with people who prioritized comfort over my pain. Last week, a coworker asked me if I'd ever gotten married. I told her no, and she asked me if I wanted to. I thought about it for a moment and told her, someday, maybe, with the right person. And the interesting thing is I meant it. This whole experience didn't take away my hope of finding real love someday. It just taught me to value more what I deserve and not to settle for less. And that, I guess, is enough for now.